بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب زدني علما رب زدني علما رب زدني علما.
Thus, it is necessary that our Lord have 1. Existence, 2. Pre-existence, then 3. Everlastingness extended to infinity. And as we explained this morning, when he says it is necessary, he means by that it is an obligation of the intellect. It is necessary in the intellect in terms of the dictates of pure reason that we establish these attributes of God. They are indicated clearly and unequivocally by the revelation. They are supported by pure reason, and they are also indicated by the study of customary experience. The first of these attributes is necessary existence, and we talked about that this morning. And we said also this morning that necessary existence is regarded to occupy a category that is uniquely its own. So it belongs to the category of what is called the ontological attribute, or more literally translated from Arabic, the self attribute, as-sifatun nafsiyya. But the word sifatun nafsiyya, we mean by that in Arabic an attribute of essence, which is so intrinsic to the essence of a thing that you cannot conceive of that essence without conceiving of it. And therefore ontology has to do with the nature of being. So it is an attribute that pertains to the nature of the being of God in itself. And it is in a category by itself because it posits something. It posits that God has the attribute of existence. But it doesn't posit any other attribute, substantive or otherwise, in conjunction with that. So the positive attributes, which we will study after the negative attributes, they all positive substantive qualities, substantive attributes, which in Arabic we call ma'ani, that God has: life, knowledge, will, power, hearing, seeing, speech. And each of them is unique, and each of them is distinct from the others. Necessary being implies all of that, but it does not specifically posit any of those attributes. And the negative attributes, which we will begin bi'ithnillahi ta'ala this afternoon, they, although expressed in positive form, pre-existence, everlastingness, dissimilarity, self-sufficiency, oneness, those are all positive expressions. Nevertheless, the way that the intellect actually understands them is negative, because they are attributes of majesty. And as attributes of majesty, they negate, with regard to God, descriptions that are not appropriate, that are not valid. So pre-existence negates beginning. هو الأول وليس لأوليته ابتداء. He is the first, but there is no beginning to his firstness. And he is the akhir. He is the last. وَلَيْسَ لِآخِرِيَتِهِ انتهاء. But there is no end to his lastness. Okay, so pre-existence negates beginning. Everlastingness negates end. God has no end. Dissimilarity negates likeness. There is nothing like him. وَلَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٍ وَهُوَ السَّمِيعُ الْبَصِيرُ. Nothing is like unto him. And he is the one who hears and sees all things. And self-sufficiency negates need. God has no need of anything. No need of time, no need of space, no need of location, no need of parts, no need of composition, no need of cause, no need of a helper. Okay, no need whatsoever. And oneness negates that there be anything, any other God with him in creation. Okay, so these are the negative attributes. And as we discuss them, bi'ithnillahi ta'ala, we will see also that the negative attributes really spell out the meaning of necessary being. They make it much more clear to us. They make it much more easy to apprehend, to understand what does necessary being mean in terms of what it does not mean, what it negates. Okay, so this is really important. And so necessary being then, when we talk about that as the first and one of the primary attributes of God, here we have another cognitive frame. Yesterday, for example, we talked about pre-existence and temporality, the definition of temporality, al-huduth, existence after non-existence. Here, one of the really important cognitive frames pertains to the complexity of existence. That existence is not uniform. You know, you exist, I exist, this beautiful place exists. But what that word means with regard to these stones and regard to ourselves is something very different from what it means with regard to God. So here we have two basic categories of existence. And in fact, it's a valid belief, although not part of our creed, that there are different levels to existence. Some of our great masters will say there are 40 levels of existence. We don't talk about that in the creed because that is something which is not conclusively indicated by the revelation, although it is there for the people who can see it. But you're not required to believe that. But existence is very complex. And this is an amazing thing. Okay, but the basic thing that we have to understand here is that there is necessary existence. And then there is also possible existence. So when we speak of God, Azza wa Jal, may He be glorified and exalted, as having the attribute of necessary existence, an existence which the intellect must necessarily affirm. The finite points to the infinite. There cannot be any finite explanation for the existence of this world, especially a world as perfect and beautiful as this world that we live in. So the intellect must affirm the existence of a necessary being. And then we posit that there is also the existence of the world, which is everything other than God, and that the quality of the existence of that world is possible. What does that mean? My existence is possible existence. Your existence is possible existence. We don't mean by that that it's possible that you don't exist. There you are. And I know that by immediate intellectual perception. And I know that also, of course, by the dictates of the senses. I see you, I hear you, you are there. Okay, so you exist, no question about that. But your existence is called possible because of the fact that it always entails two basic possibilities. And one of those is to exist, and the other of those is not to exist. So here you are, mashallah, you know, a manifestation of the glory of God, who created you, who made you who you are, with the perception that you have, with the presence that you have. Okay, this is a miracle. This is a sign of God. Okay, you exist. But before you existed, you did not exist. You are temporal. Right? You exist after non-existence. And always, in terms of your essence, the reality of what you are and how you are, you could not exist. That potential is always there in you. So this is what we mean by possible existence. And all of the things that exist in the world, and that world, as you know, the alam, is a sign of God in everything. Everything that exists in that world, it has the possibility of non-existence. And therefore, it only exists because it has been willed to exist. And it has been brought into existence or caused by power, by qahr, by constraint. Okay, so this is really important. And in the realm of possible existence, which is the realm of all creation, the possibilities of possible things are how many? How many are they? These glasses belong, like me and you and everything else in the world, to the realm of possible existence. Here they are, they exist. They could also not exist. They could be destroyed. Okay? And they have attributes which we could describe. We could talk about the weight of the glasses. We could talk about the lenses of the glasses. We could talk about the color of the glasses. We could talk about so many things. Okay? How many other possibilities do these glasses have other than the ones that are manifest in them? For every single attribute that you can designate that has been limited, delimited in these glasses to make them what they are, there is an infinite set. There is a potential infinite set of other possibilities. The glasses are black. Couldn't they be white? Couldn't they be blue? Couldn't they be red? Couldn't they be golden? Couldn't they be silver? Couldn't they be polka dot? They could be infinitely different. And their shape is the shape they have. How many other shapes could they have? Infinite. That's really important. That's really important. So the possibilities of possible things are unlimited. And that does not mean that everything is possible. These glasses have certain necessities. They must be delimited in time and space. They must occupy space. And they must be delimited in time. And they must have certain relations with regard to everything else. I'm touching them. Now I'm not. Now we're connected. Now we're disconnected. They are close. If I threw them across the room, they would be far away. These are all necessary contingencies that pertain to these glasses. Okay? It's not possible for a mountain to exist that doesn't have a top. And it's got to have a top. It's got to be delimited. It cannot exist in time and space without the delimitation of possibilities. It's really important. It cannot exist in time and space without the delimitation of possibilities. And that is the role of necessary existence. That is the role of the one whose existence is not possible. It is necessary. He is the source of all cause and effect. He is the creator. He is the one. Okay, so that's very important. And for that reason, these glasses too are a sign. And they belong to the alam. They belong to the world, which is a sign of God, a banner of God. Okay? These glasses cannot possibly exist of their own or on their own. It's not possible. It is impossible that these glasses just happened. And your pure reason knows that is totally impossible. Okay? These are ordered. These are organized. You know, all these bodies that occupy the world that we occupy, they all have order. And order can be described numerically, mathematically. They all have composition. They all have parts, right? And the most simple aspect of this composition is order. That first we have this, then we have this, then we have this. They're all ordered. It's in line, one thing after another. Can order happen randomly? Absolutely not. Totally impossible. Random does not exist. Chance does not exist. Chance exists in the sense that things happen that are not of my knowledge, not of my will, not of your will, not under my power. When I first went to pilgrimage a long time ago, I came from Egypt, and there was a man who I would pray with because he had a little mosque, you know, on my street. One of those little corner mosques. I thought he was a saint. He was a very good man, Egyptian from Upper Egypt. And I was astounded by Mecca. I actually seen it in a dream, like the night before I came. Saw myself walking in the haram. Then I found myself walking in the haram. I was in a dream. And the next day I had to go up to the second floor just to look at the Kaaba. For hours and hours. And then I turned around and there he is, sitting right behind me. We weren't on the same airplane. I didn't even know he was coming to Hajj. So is that chance? Yes. But that means I didn't know it. I didn't will it. I didn't make it happen. I didn't plan it, nor did he. But God did, right? God put him there as a sign. That cannot happen by chance. You know, again, order. Mathematical order is the basic characteristic of these things. Okay? And what is the possibility of mathematical order? Let's take 10 objects, like 10 marbles. They're all the same size. They all have the same surface, you know, not some are rough and some are soft. They're all the same. Okay, and then we number them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then I put them in my pocket. Okay, and we mix them up. And now I want to put my hand in my pocket, draw out number 1 first. What is the possibility that I can do that? 1 to 10, because they're 10 marbles. Okay, mashallah, we drew out number 1 first. Amazing. Now we put it back, mix them up again. I want to pull out number 2 second. What's the possibility? 1 to 100. To pull out number 2 second without order, 1 to 10. But if I want to have an order, 1, 2, that's different. Now I have to multiply the possibilities of drawing out number 1 first with the possibility of drawing out number 2. I want to now pull out number 3 in order. 1 to 1,000. That's not so easy to do. That might take us all day. Okay, now we put the marble back in the pocket, we mix it up, we want to pull out number 4 fourth. 1 to 10,000. And the possibility that we could actually sit here and mix the marbles in our pocket, pull out number 1 first, MashaAllah, mix the marbles, pull out number 2 second, MashaAllah, mix the marbles, pull out number 3 third, MashaAllah, we did it. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, we did it. What is the probability that would happen? 1 to 10 billion. 1 to 10 billion, meaning that if we are drawing a marble out of our pocket every second, we will need approximately 325 years to get the order right. Maybe one time in about 325 years. That's longer than the time that the sleepers stayed in the cave. We might get it once. So what does that tell you? That tells you that nothing happens by chance. Not possible. Impossible. Everything happens by will. Everything happens by power. Everything happens by knowledge. That's really important. And here, we didn't even study chance. We didn't even study random. Because who made the marbles? The marbles didn't just happen. They were manufactured. Who put the numbers on the marbles? We did that for our experiment. We put them in a pocket. We limited the space. And how were they drawn out? By my hand, by my will, by my power. And the only aspect of chance here is that I did not see the one that I drew out. So in other words, this impossible chance, this impossible random, which would take us over 325 years to possibly get that order once, it occurred in a thimble, the thimble that you put on the tip of your finger when you sew. It's nothing. Okay, this is really important, and this is pure reason. This is why when we look at the world around us, it has got to have an explanation. It cannot explain itself. The finite points to the infinite. The finite cannot give an account of itself. And again, if we go back to the glasses, for that reason, these glasses, as long as they exist, if they exist for 1,000,000 years, and if something happens on the earth and human beings are wiped out, whatever happens, and somebody discovers them, they will know that there were intelligent beings on the earth. Because as long as these glasses exist, there is a connection in pure reason between them and their maker. And their maker is a human being. We know that by custom. That's not a problem. Their maker is 1,000,000 times more amazing than they are, and 1,000,000 times more in need of a maker. But there is an intelligent being. You know that that intelligent being, or those beings who work to make these glasses, you know they existed, right? How do you know? Because this exists. As long as it exists, it is a sign saying, pointing to its maker. These glasses cannot exist on their own. Impossible, impossible, impossible. Okay? And we know that whoever made these glasses, he or she or they, were alive when they made them. They might not be now, but they were when they made the glasses. And we know also that they had knowledge. They had to have a sufficient amount of knowledge to be able to make these glasses. And we know also that they had will. And as you'll see, the nature of will is that it designates and delimits. That I want the glasses to be black and not to be white. I want them to be of this weight and not of a lighter weight or a heavier weight. And he or she or they had to have power, which is the ability to make glasses. Maybe they couldn't do anything else, but at least they could make glasses. Okay? This is really important. So this is why the whole world and everything that is in the world is a sign. It is an ayah that points to the one. And it shows us that he exists. And it shows us that he is a living God. And it shows us that he is the God of will, who designates that these things will be, and that he is the God of power and wisdom and goodness, the necessary being. But again, he is not like the maker of the glasses, because the maker of the glasses here, who is your brother or my brother or sister in Japan or wherever they may be, this is the most remarkable creation that ever was. We have eyes with which to see. The eyes that we have are remarkable. They are miraculous. And those of you who studied medicine or biology, you know how incredibly miraculous this human being is, and all animals are. We have DNA. You know, my father was one of the people who studied DNA. He was a veterinarian. He had a PhD in veterinary medicine. He had a PhD also in organic biology, organic chemistry. And I remember when DNA was discovered, he brought me the Scientific American. It was to him like one of the greatest things of his life. And then that's what he studied for the rest of his life, DNA and veterinary medicine. And he'd show me the molecule and things like that, you know. But the thing is that my father used to say this, you know, and he was one of the reasons why I came to Islam, because when I took my communion in the Lutheran church, I knew Luther's catechism like Al-Fatiha. And my mother could open up the catechism and ask me a question, and I would recite it. She was really happy. And then I took my communion, and on a beautiful day in the spring, my father would sit back in the back of the church. He believed in God, but he was a man of great reason. And he took my hand, and we were walking down the street together, and he said, "Larry," he said, "do you believe in the Trinity? Really?" And to me, it was like, I didn't know what to say. I was shocked. It's like, you mean you don't? I mean, that's what's in my mind, because I really admired my father. You know, it's like, wait a minute. You're like, we're not on this together. We're not on the same page, you know? And then he just told me a story, which was a sort of a comical story about a Chinese sage whom a missionary tried to convert, and the Chinese sage told him that 1 and 3 don't go together. You know, that 1 is unicity and 3 is plurality. And that did it. It broke the Liberty Bell. You know, in the United States, we made the Liberty Bell, and when we first tried to ring it, liberty for all, it broke. That's a sign from God, isn't it? They never were able to fix it, but my Trinity was like that. It's like, bong, and then it broke. And the next week, I went back to my pastor, and I told him I have doubts about the Trinity. He thought I would be the next Martin Luther. You know, and he was shocked. He was jolted. And probably because he had doubts about it himself. The Trinity is a big problem. But, you know, may Allah Azza wa Jal, you know, open our eyes, and may He let us understand this world that's around us. So possible being, my father used to say, he said, I cannot look in the microscope, the electron microscope, and not believe in God. That's what he used to say. And that's because he had intellect. Because he knew that this cannot be by chance. The DNA molecule. I mean, this is a miracle, isn't it? All organic life that we know has this same basic DNA molecule, which is extremely complex. My father used to say that if you compare it to the computer's a child's toy. You know, and you have this in the amoeba. You have this in the most simple animals. The molecule is not as long, but it's still basically the same. Even viruses, you know, they plug into your DNA, right? They get into the cell and they take over the DNA and they change the code and they make it produce the virus instead of producing what it's supposed to be producing. These are miracles. And this cannot be by chance. Impossible. And any idea of evolution in which the evolution of species or of life just happens, comes out of the soup and it mixes itself, totally impossible. Ignorance to the highest level. In the 19th century, the debate over evolution, among the greatest people that took part in that were people like Cuvier, who's at the end of the 18th century, the early part of the 19th century. He knew Lamarck. Lamarck begins the evolutionary theory debate in earnest, although his theory is laughable. And Lamarck is the one who believed that giraffes get long heads because they stretch, you know, to eat the leaves, and then their child comes out with a little bit longer neck. The next one gets a longer neck, that you can inherit earned attributes. And Cuvier almost expelled him. Cuvier was a great scientist. He was one of the greatest scientists of his time, of the Enlightenment. He's the one who talked about the dinosaurs. He's the one who put the dinosaurs together. He's the one who talked about the ancient fishes of the sea. He was an incredible biologist. And then Agassiz is one of his students. He had other students as well. And they said that what Darwin talks about as the mechanism of evolution is the mechanism of the extinction of species. And as Cuvier pointed out, he said, if you give me the bone of any animal, any bone, he said, I can put the whole structure together. And I can tell you whether it ate meat or whether it grazed or whether it was omnivorous. Because he said, everything in this body is organically and integrally connected. And therefore, if you make any major change in the body, you will incapacitate the animal, or you would debilitate the animal or the human being, unless everything changes with it. So you can't just have a slight change in the eye and then another slight change in the eye. Everything has got to change together. This was his idea. And therefore, people like Cuvier and Agassiz and others, Agassiz was a great man. And he was from Switzerland, then he comes to the United States. He did incredible work in the United States, American biology and zoology and taxonomy and other things are basically the work of Agassiz. But he said that we believe in creative evolution. This is the real debate. The way that the evolutionary debate is often presented to us, it's like you have these clerics in the church that don't know anything anyway, and they're just, upset with Darwin because of some of the conclusions. That's part of the story, but the real debate is a scientific debate in the scientific community. Joseph Priestley, who is one of the great minds of Europe at the end of the 18th century, early 19th century, amazing person, Unitarian, who believed in the unity of God and who wrote about Christianity, who was a scientist. He's regarded as one of the fathers of oxygen, and many things. Amazing person, Joseph Priestley. But one of the things that he insisted on is that when you study science, you must study the history of science. And I think this is really important for us because a lot of us do study science. We study medicine, biology, these different sciences, which are great. But you need to study the history of that field. Because when you study the history of the field, then you see the debates. Then you see how you ended up where you are. Pasteur, for example, will dominate the medical discourse of the West at the expense of Hahnemann. And Hahnemann, who is one of the fathers of homeopathy, he's just as good as Pasteur. He's better. He is also a great scientist. But Hahnemann is sort of forgotten. He's pushed to the side. And then Pasteur becomes everything. And you need to know the whole story. You need to go back and look at Hahnemann as well. And the same thing, in the great debate over evolution, most 19th century biologists believed in evolution, long before Darwin. But they believed in creative evolution, and they believed that evolution is one of the signs of God's existence, and that history is filled with the extinction of species. Although one of the things they insisted on, which is still valid to this day, is that species are demarcated. They are clearly distinct. We have no evidence of a species becoming another species. The species are set. And one of the ways that we define species is the fact that animals within a species can usually procreate. So if you cross a dog with a wolf, you will have a puppy that is a wolf and a dog. So that means that dogs and wolves belong to the same species. A donkey and a horse belong to the same species. If you cross them, you get what? A mule. The mule won't be able to reproduce. It's sterile, although it's an amazing animal. Strong. It has all the qualities of a donkey, strength, and other qualities, and it has also the qualities of a horse. Mules are amazing, but you take here the two limits of the species, and they can cross, so they belong to the same species. But you don't see species changing. This was the main argument, perhaps, against Darwin. Certainly one of the main arguments. And for that reason, the proponents of Darwinian theory always talk about the missing links. They're still missing. We haven't found any. And for that reason, 19th century biology also was fundamentally concerned with archetypes. And this is something that is very germane to what we believe about reality, that archetypes play a major role in the structure of reality as God created it. This is not part of our creed, but it is part of our general spiritual and belief tradition. And I believe that it's valid. Some people might say, I don't believe it's valid, and you don't have to. That's not required. That's not obligatory. If you want to believe it, you're allowed to do that. If you don't want to believe it, not necessary. But one of the things they would do is to try to define what is the archetypical species? What is the archetypical horse? What is the archetypical human being? Adam. What is the archetypical mollusk? And today, a lot of scientists would just say, look at this metaphysical nonsense. Look at metaphysics intruding upon science. No, that's not true. These are people who really were scientists, and they did profound things. Okay, so possible being. This is really important. And when we talk about God, again, you cannot know God if you do not know yourself. And the most important thing that you need to know about yourself and about myself is that we are weak, we are dependent, we are essentially insignificant. We do not create ourselves. You need to be humble. I need to be humble, right? We put our forehead on the floor. That's the best position that I can be in with regard to my Lord. Everything I have is a freely given gift. Everything that you have is a freely given gift. Wake up. Wake up. Your eyes, your ears, your life. This is a wonder. Okay? But also, we belong to the realm of possible being. And possible being is the arena of creation. And it is a potential infinite. When we talk about infinity, we talk about potential infinites. And we talk about actual infinites. And actual infinites do not exist. We can talk about an infinite set in mathematics. And we can talk about how that set might be if it existed. But very few people, if anyone in mathematics, would ever say that an actual infinite set exists. You wouldn't be able to cross it if it did. It has certain aspects that we can talk about. But potential infinites, that is that things they can change infinitely. The garden is a potential infinite. The fire is a potential infinite. You are also that way because your soul will never die. Allah created it that way. Your soul is rooted in non-existence, your ruh. And your ruh lived in the world before this world, right? Okay. Your ruh, was created long before this world. And inshallah, we were all together there. That's what I hope. I don't know. I don't have that kind of ability. But we like each other. We relate to each other. If we don't, that's a dangerous thing. Al-arwahu junudun mujannada. The spirits, the arwah, are soldiers marshaled in armies. فَمَا تَعَارَفَ مِنْهَا ائْتَلَفَ. Those who recognize each other come together in harmony. We don't have problems. We will work our problems out. We will work together. We can cooperate. We're not rivals. We don't have animosity towards each other. Okay, that shows that inshallah we were in the same army. This army of the spirits, doing tawaf around the throne of God for eons. That's you, that's your identity. Okay? And then at some time in that process, Allah brought us together in the loins of our father Adam. And he brought us to the plain of Arafat, where we go for pilgrimage. And he took us and put all of us and all generation of human beings in the wadi, in that valley that's between Arafat and between the Haram. And then he said, Alastu bi rabbikum. And we were like this big. We were like little ants. Some pure white, inshallah everyone here was like that, and some black. The ones of white are the people of beauty. The ones of black are the people of majesty. The ones of white are the people of the right hand. The ones of black are the people of the left hand. And inshallah we'll try to talk about that also. And then he said, Alastu bi rabbikum, am I not your Lord? And we knew that he is our God. You know, God is the one who makes things as they ought to be. God is the one who makes the cat a cat, makes the dog a dog, makes you, you, makes me, me, and makes Satan, Satan, and makes Pharaoh, Pharaoh. This is the work of God. He makes things according to his infinite knowledge and wisdom as they ought to be in infinite wisdom. Unknown wisdom to me and perhaps to you. But the Lord, Ar-Rabb, he is the one who commands and prohibits. Do this and don't do this. Do not eat of this tree. Do not eat of that meat. You know, you're not allowed to, whether you understand it or not. Don't eat of that. I have the prerogative to command, and you have the responsibility to obey. And he is also the one who educates. Yurabbi, he is the one who brings us out of darkness into light. He is the one who makes you grow. He is the one who makes you understand. That's the Rabb. And this was a big question. You know, am I not your Lord? Meaning that, what's happening? In other words, like, we've been doing tawaf around the throne of God for an infinity of time. And inshallah, we were together. That's why we know each other. Even though you have a gender, now you have a body, maybe you're white, maybe you're black, whatever you may be. I ended up in America, you ended up maybe in Pakistan, or South Africa, or Argentina, okay? But we were together, and now we're back together, okay? And we recognize each other, and therefore we can work together. We can cooperate. Inshallah, maybe we can be together the rest of our lives, and never have differences. May that be the case. Maybe we solve all of our differences. We've got to build. We've got to be like these people who built, you know, who worked. This is what we have to do. Inshallah, we can do it. وَمَا تَنَاكَرَ مِنْهَا اخْتَلَفَ. And those who do not recognize each other, they're not comfortable with each other. They don't like each other. And they don't get along. And you can't bring them together. Very difficult to do that. Because they are different armies. So like, I never saw you before in my life. Never saw you before in my existence. Everybody here, it's like, we've known each other for a long time. How many hours now? Like this brother, I met him like, 2 days ago? But it's like we've known each other for how many thousands of years? Right? No, that's the truth. That's the truth. So, you know, the ruh, it comes from that world, and then through the wombs of our blessed mothers, we come into this world. And the womb is called the raham, you know, because this is the place of mercy. And mercy, the basic quality of mercy is not forgiveness. The basic quality of mercy is not pardon. The basic quality of mercy, as manifested in the name Ar-Rahman, is that God gives you everything you need to be what you're supposed to be. He gives you your eyes, your ears, your heart, your strength, your health. And in the womb, the baby's given fingernails, the baby's given ears, the baby's given eyes, the baby's given, you know, gums in which his or her teeth can grow. The baby's given a heart that beats. The baby's given everything that he or she needs to be a human being, or to be a lion, you know, or to be a or to be, any other animal. The eggs are also like that too. Crocodiles come out of eggs, but and birds, they're given that, you know. And the bird, when it sits on the egg, rakhama. Rakhama, that's how we say that the bird sits on its eggs. Rakhama. It's almost like rahama. It's just the kha instead of the ha. Okay? So out of this mercy, then we come into this world for the test. This world is the shortest of them all. Thank God. This is a test. This is a hard test, a difficult test. May you keep your head above the water. May you be strong. And the most important thing, may your link to God be you and Him. You need community. You need brothers and sisters. May we be the community of each other always and not break that. But you can't depend on human beings. You have to turn your back on creation. Because if the strength of my religion is based on the people around me, I would have lost it a long time ago. You've got to have this personal relationship which keeps you going no matter what. And that's why we have to know our Lord. And that's why the most beautiful thing in our life must be that direct relationship to our Lord. And then after this world, we go into another womb. And what's the name of that womb? The tomb, the grave, where you and I are both going. Some people don't go to the grave. They drown at sea, or they're swallowed by an anaconda, or eaten by a jaguar, right? But we call it the world of the tomb because generally that's what happens. People go into the tomb, they die. And then they go into the next world. What's it called? Barzakh. Barzakh, the intermediary world. It is huge. These people are in Barzakh. And they see you and they know you. And they are in the garden. Bi-idhnillahi ta'ala. And some people in the Barzakh are in the fire. But the Barzakh is on the earth, under the earth, in the sky. It's huge. And people are there for many years. Sometimes thousands and thousands of years. And then you have the fourth life, which is what? The resurrection. Inshallah, we'll talk about that because that's part of our creed. And then the resurrection is like what? 50,000 years. For the believer, maybe like the time between Dhuhr and Asr. But it is the greatest tribulation of all, even for the believers. And then you have the judgment, which is part of that. And you have the hawd, the drinking from the pool, inshallah, of the Prophet. May we all meet there. May we drink from the hands of the blessed Prophet ﷺ and never thirst again. And then there is the weighing of the deeds, which is before that, the balance. And then there's the sirat that goes from the earth to the garden. Very, very long. And then you have the next world and the last world, which is what we call the hereafter. The garden and the fire, which are absolutely true. They exist, we believe in them, and we don't say they must exist. If God didn't will to create a garden, He didn't have to. If He didn't will to create a fire, He didn't have to. But they are almost like cosmic necessities. And to understand that, you have to go beyond the creed. Because you have to understand the nature of identity and the nature of you and what happened in the first world and why you are here and what you do. But we don't talk about that in the creed. The creed is much more basic than that. So necessary existence, possible existence. And then we have the negative attributes, pre-existence, qidam, meaning no beginning, no cause, no cause. God is utterly beyond cause. Can you understand that? No. Can I understand that? No. But I must affirm it, and I do affirm it, and I will hold to it and never flinch, because this is a dictate of intellect. This is a dictate of revelation. Al-yaqeenu la yazulu bi-shak. This is one of the main maxims of Islamic law. Certainty is never removed by doubt. The fact that I cannot comprehend my Lord will never keep me from believing in my Lord and declaring His oneness, which is based on truth and knowledge and intellect. This is why, you are really something. And this is why to believe, you have to have what? Inshirahu sadr. That whomever Allah wills to guide, He expands their breast, because truth is huge. And a tight, narrow breast cannot accept it. No place for it. You've got to have an open heart, and then the more open it is, the more it's full of that truth. And then we live the life that is good. We pray, we fast, we eat the halal, we leave the haram, we have companionship together. And again, we are the feast of the souls. If I'm with you, you're a feast, because you bring here treasures. You are upright, you are good. You didn't get here, if you didn't have that. So you bring to us things. You have special qualities. And we all mix that together. And we come out of this transformed. We come out of this stronger. So we ask Allah to give us understanding. Al-baqa is everlastingness. And in English we have a word for that, which is sempiternity. Did you ever hear it before? If you read John Milton, you will. If you read Newton, you will. Sempiternity, which means to last forever. In Spanish you have that, sempiternidad. To last forever. So these go together. Inshallah, tomorrow we'll come back to that. And we try to go a little bit faster, because we want to finish the Aqeeda. Usually I'm not able to do that, even though it's just 19 verses. But inshallah, we have to finish, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. Let's take some questions in the time that we're here. Okay, so let me see. I'm going to give priority to the women. Zainab, what is your question?
Just quickly, could you just repeat what you said about the white and the black? I missed that.
Sorry?
You mentioned something earlier about a white and a black.
Mm-hmm.
Do you mind repeating that, please?
So you're asking about the people of the right hand, the people of the left hand.
Yes.
The ones that are white, not like they call me white, I'm not white, but like this is white, or pearl is white, or black, like this is black.
Yes.
Okay? And this is a truth the Prophet taught us, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And inshallah, we will talk about this later, because we hope to have a class that will be on good and evil. And that would be the appropriate place to talk about that, if you don't mind. Because that's a huge topic. And we want to talk about that, but we'll have to have at least one class for that, inshallah, or two, inshallah. Sidi Muhammad, you always ask questions. Okay, let's take this man over here. Then I'll come back to you, inshallah. Yeah, تفضل.
Jazakallah Shaykh. Was man created via evolution, or just like Adam was created in an instant, or just via evolution? Like creative evolution, but evolution nonetheless.
Adam, in everything that happens in creation, is an act of original creation. This is one of the things that we'll talk about. This is one of our beliefs, that nothing exists of its essence even after its creation. So I and the attributes that I have do not exist from one moment to another except by the knowledge, the will, and the power of God. God created me and He created you a long time ago. And then He created us in this world. But from every moment you are created and recreated. So this is very important to understand. And reality, as we see it right here in front of us, it's sort of like a film in which you have the frames of the film. And the frame that is in front of the other frames is just a little bit different. And then when they go by rapidly, it looks like the people are walking and talking and moving and speaking and so forth. But in reality, it's frame, space, frame, space, frame, space. But it happens so quickly and so seamlessly, unless the projector stops, that you can't tell the difference. You can't see the spaces, but they're there. They're going by just like that, but we're not able to see them. And this is also the way that reality is, that I exist in this moment. I am recreated in the next moment. I am recreated in the next moment. كُلَّ يَوْمٍ هُوَ فِي شَأْنٍ. In every day or every moment, God is doing something new. So this is the nature of creation. We do not believe that any attribute, like the attributes of these glasses, has in it the ability intrinsically or essentially to continue from one moment to another. It is recreated. This begins with the creation of God, and it continues in every moment like that. Okay, but the evolution of species, of animals, this is a matter left to research. So if we find that there were different kinds of animals in the Pleistocene or in other terms in history, we believe that. And we affirm that. And that's not a problem for us. God creates whatever He wills. He is the Lord of the worlds. That's not a problem. In the case of the human being, Adam is created from nothing. And he is not evolved. He is made and put there. And he is amazing. And inshallah, we will talk about that, bi'ithnillahi ta'ala, and human beings develop from that as part of the natural world around them, bi'ithnillahi ta'ala. There are a lot of things to discover. There are a lot of things to talk about. But again, this is why you and I, we have to be working. We have got to learn our religion. We have to learn our belief. We have to be illuminated by it, like people like Sheikh Hamza Yusuf. And then when we read about science and astronomy, we have got to be able to work with the cognitive frames. That, wait a minute, I don't necessarily accept this cognitive frame. And then we can modify it and put something that is better there. But we need to be involved in all of these debates. In physics, in astrophysics, in biology, whatever it may be, and we are believers. We are believers. This is also why it's very good that we have our own institutions, like Zaytuna College, and like many of the institutions here, where we are free to do science with pure reason and with revelation. And we're not going to do this kind of crazy science that is being done by some of the Christian right, for example, in countries like my own. No, we want to do the real thing. But again, we've got to have the right perspective. And I think things like quantum mechanics, things like that, we can really work with that. We have the theological foundation to work with that. Even in the discovery of quantum mechanics, some of the men who got Nobel Prizes for that actually took their inspiration from Buddhism, according to my understanding of the history of science. So we need to add what we've got, and then you get things right. Because again, I'm not a physicist, and any physicist who would be here might be uncomfortable with me talking about the Doppler effect or the Hubble's law or things like that. Because physicists, they have a very precise way of speaking about these things in a way that I can't do. But nevertheless, for me, when I look at these things, and I read about them, for example, in encyclopedias of physics and things like that, that try to make it intelligible to laymen like me, I can just see there are lots of assumptions that are here. There are assumptions about cause and effect. There are assumptions about the uniformity of nature, and we don't accept that. So if we look at the same thing, like the Doppler effect, the red stratum of things approaching the blue stratum of things going away, we could have a very different view of it. And this is what you have to do. And in the history of science, the history of species, we have to be involved in that. And we have to be involved in that at the highest level. I know people in Chicago who have mastered biology and evolutionary theory, and who can talk about it with great precision and intelligence. That's what we have to do. And this is our inheritance, right? Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Also, one of the questions here is what comes first, pure reason or revelation? In terms of priority, revelation is at the top. But how do you understand revelation? And how do you know that it's true? And how do you know that the Prophet ﷺ is a prophet? This cannot be based on an authoritarian dictate. This has got to be based on your ability to look at things and to understand things and to have cognition. So for that reason, we always put great priority on reason. It is the basis of taklif, of moral responsibility. It's very important. And for us, reason and revelation go together. They don't contradict each other. Although there are many things that reason cannot get on its own. Such as, for example, when we talk about good and evil, and we talk about prophetic infallibility, things like that, then we come up against something which our scholars have often called sirrul qadr, the secret of destiny. And the secret of destiny is regarded to be one of the greatest fruits of all the fruits of ma'rifah. Rumi, that's what he is. All these beautiful verses written here and in his Mathnawi, they all revolve these great men, and also what they do, the kind of dance they do and everything. All of this is the secret of qadr. It is the secret of destiny. And if you perceive that, it is the most beautiful of all things. And it is a restoration of the soul. It is expansion of the breast. But, who can get there? We will all get there on the Day of Judgment. وَلِلَّهِ الْحُجَّةُ الْبَالِغَةُ. God has the manifest proof about good and evil, and about the black and the white, and the right hand and the left hand. And you will understand that on the Day of Judgment. You may understand it here. And we can talk about it. Once the reason has reached that, once reason follows the heart and follows the spirit and tastes, then reason becomes enlightened, and it can come back and talk, and it can write, and it can explain, but it can't get there on its own. And also experience is extremely important. I mean, everything that happens in the world of science, and biology and physics, and these are signs of God. And again, we have a huge tradition. Look at Abu Hayyan, the great chemist. This man is amazing. Kitab al-Sab'een, he wrote over 100 books. And he is a chemist. He's not an alchemist. He didn't like alchemy. But again, in his Kitab al-Sab'een, he begins by glorifying God and calling upon you, the student of chemistry, to purify yourself and to know your Lord. And also telling you that there's no reason for you to continue in this book until you do that. This is our tradition. And we need to bring this tradition to light. Again, when we talk about the expansion theory of the universe, the Doppler effect, Hubble's law, and things like that, you have scientists like Hoyle, for example, who will say, we want no metaphysical intrusions. In other words, like, okay, you're up against the wall, because this shows you creatio ad nihilo. It shows you creation from nothing. And he said, I want no metaphysical intrusions. It's like, who are you? Tyrant. It's like, this is kufr. This is the rejection. This is the place where intellect works. And this is the place where pure intellect could also make your physics work. Or at least it would certainly give you different calculations and different perspectives. And if you put that with revelation, you might come out with something really amazing. Bi-idhnillahi ta'ala. And again, in medicine, all these fields, we can make this civilization that we live in, which is one of the most amazing in history. And as Imam Hamza said last night, we live in a very good time. We can travel all the way from Chicago, to here, with no highway robbers, no danger of being attacked, no danger of pestilence and plague. Really, this is an amazing time. How long will this last? How long is this window going to be? God knows. I don't know. But we have got to work in this time. And again, all these things you've learned about computers, engineering, medicine, whatever, on the basis of Aqeeda and the basis of fiqh also, knowing the sunnah of the Messenger of God, we have to work with this. And we can make it much greater. Today, the more you learn, the less you know. Isn't that true? Even, people that are making thousands of dollars an hour, in Chicago, some of my best friends, in the biggest buildings in Chicago, overlooking the Chicago River. Big firms. And you ask them certain questions about law, they can't answer because that's not their specialty. They studied that, but their specialty is corporate law. And the other things are not significant for them. And one of the things we want to do is to bring it all together. We are the people of Tawheed. One of the things Shaykh Hamza said years ago, which inspired us to have a seminar together on our tradition, is that when we talk about what the tradition is, One of the things that it must be, this is Shaykh Hamza, is that it enables a man or woman that has a good mind and leisure, as he said last night. Leisure is civilization. You've got it, don't waste it. You know, you've got leisure and you have an amply long life, you know, to master the whole tradition. And I've seen that, and Shaykh Hamza's seen that. To me, the example of that is Shaykh Shadhili al-Nayfar, one of the greatest Tunisian scholars I ever knew. And I loved him, and he was very loving to me. And the first time I visited him in his house in Tunisia, which was in 1979, you know, he showed me all of his books. His house was filled with books. And he said, even in the kitchen I have manuscripts. And he took me into the kitchen, he showed his manuscripts there. And always with Shadhili al-Nayfar, it's like my feeling was that you know all of this. Because there's nothing in his library that he's not acquainted with. You can ask him about Ibn Sina. He's a master of Ibn Sina, and of fiqh, and of usul, and of Arabic. How? How is this possible? That's a really good question. And again, enter the houses through their doors. You know, begin the Aqeeda here. You could also begin with other beautiful poems and texts. But this is the door. This is one of the doors. You get this, then you can go further, you can go further. You want to do Arabic? The Ajurumiyya is a beautiful place to begin. Not necessary to do that, but if you start with the Ajurumiyya, you may go a long way. And these basic texts, Tafsir al-Jalalain, you want to understand Quranic discourse, you need to study Quran, Tafsir al-Jalalain. It is mashhur. It's a very simple tafsir, but it will give you talqeen. It will give you direct perception of how Allah speaks to you in the Quran. It's amazing. That's one of its purposes. It's a huge door. So when we enter that way with humility, then you get people who are able to bring all of this together. And this is what we call the rooting of knowledge. And this is one of our obligations today. You know, mashallah, you are, as I've heard great scholars say, one of the most remarkable generations of Muslims in history. Never in the non-Muslim world has there existed a minority like you today in the United Kingdom, or in Canada, or the United States, or New Zealand, or Australia, or France, or Germany, or Argentina. Has there existed a Muslim minority, dynamic, intelligent, gifted, renewed, young, with the ability to bring it back, to do the deen, to root knowledge. And this is what we have to do. And this is going to be fun. This is going to be exciting. We love this. This is our water. We are fishes made to swim in this water, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. You know? And we must be the leaders. But first we have got to learn how to lead. And first we have to learn how to be led. But inshallah, this is what we will do bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. And again, where do the great changes happen in the Islamic world, in its history? Richard Bullitt, who wrote this great book, Bulliet, who wrote The Case for Islamo-Christian Civilization. It's a book you should all read, not very long. The Case for Islamo-Christian Civilization, and he has other books, Islam in the Periphery and so forth. One of his arguments, which I believe is quite valid, it may not be 100%, is that the great changes that transform the ummah usually happen on the periphery, not in the heartland, with all love and due respect to the brothers and sisters from the heartland. But usually it's in the periphery, where, by definition, Islam is in direct contact with converts. This is the secret of Islam. Sibawayh. Sibawayh is the son of converts, who then is with his Shaykh Khalil. And that synergy produces this miracle of grammar and morphology. And today, I mean, and Turkey is always a periphery, by the way. The Ottoman Empire is a peripheral state. And the madrasa system, this also came out of Afghanistan. It's part of the university system, from which we get the Western university, and the PhD, and the thesis, and the doctorate, and the chair. This is a chair. We have a chair in philosophy at Harvard University, for example. These are the chairs. This is the chair from which that came. You know, humanism, the humanistic tradition, which for Europeans is the flower, you know, in the hat. That's also from us from our tradition of the udaba, of the literateurs, and the men and women who worked in the chancelleries of the Islamic State. These are really important things. And inshallah, may we come back to life and we bring this back to life. May you all have long lives. May we all have long lives. And we've got to work. We've got to build, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. اللهم وفقنا لما تحبه وترضى واجعلنا من عبيدك السعداء وأمتنا على كلمة الهدى